Not too long ago, I felt like I was trapped. Maybe you can relate. Every day seemed like a drag and brought a sense of struggle. I couldn't get to sleep at night, and I didn't want to wake up in the morning. It seemed like every day I had to deal with some sort of frustration, pain, anger, fear, guilt, resentment, or annoyance. And even if I didn't, there would be something else that threw me off track. It wasn't like I didn't want things to get better or that I didn't try. Lord knows I tried. I mean, the word self-help junkie doesn't even begin to describe what I was like. Whatever fad or craze was popular at the time, I tried it. But any goals I set out to achieve, regardless of the effort and conscious action I took, they never came to be. Like I said, life was a drag and I felt trapped. In fact, I felt trapped for so long that at one point, I couldn't even remember what it was like to be free. Until one day it came back to me, and I remembered what being free was really like. I remembered that before I was trapped, I was just like you were one day, perhaps a long time ago. I remembered that I hadn't always been trapped, but there was actually a time that I was happy, free, getting out of life what I really wanted every single day. I remembered what it was like to feel the freedom of truly being alive, to experience the amazing vibe of living life to the fullest, to enjoy more life, and to express my own unique creative power to consciously create the amazing life experience that I truly wanted for both myself and others. That recollection flipped a switch inside and set me up to find out how to break out of the construct of limiting beliefs, emotional debris, and subconscious patterns that had me trapped. And I did. And right now, I'm going to explain to you exactly how I did it. Hey everybody, welcome back to Crack Your Egg, and we reached our third video presentation already. I mean, where did the time go, right? Anyway, before we start, I just want to mention that this video presentation is most useful if you've watched the earlier video presentations first and gone through the ebooks that came with them. So you've got your bases covered and you can be sure you understand all of what we're going to be talking about here, and what the egg is and does and all that other stuff we've covered so far. So if you haven't watched the previous video presentations yet or haven't read the ebooks yet, you might want to do that right now before we get on with this presentation, but I'll do a quick recap in a moment as well. And also, I wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone for all the great comments you've been posting. It's really great to hear from you all, and I really appreciate it. Now, let me recap real quick for you. In the first video presentation, we spoke about what the egg is, as sort of a metaphorical force field that you've cast around yourself, and that's not only constantly pressuring to keep you small, but also colors the perception of yourself and the world in general in a negative way. We also spoke about the importance of being aware of your egg as a first step in cracking it and breaking free from the struggle in life that it causes you. And then, in the second video presentation, we talked in more detail about what the egg does to you, in terms of keeping you small, sabotaging your efforts to improve, and filtering and coloring your perception of life in general and of yourself, and how exactly it does all that, and about how you can identify its foundational elements so you can target those in the right ways and with the right techniques in order to crack your egg, take the entire eggshell structure down, and finally break free. Now, in today's session, we're going to talk about the sly schemes that your egg can play on you, even with regard to your own attempts to actually crack it. We're going to get into why it can feel like it's so hard and difficult to break free no matter what you try. And of course, we're going to get into ways for you to overcome this sort of sabotage so that you will in fact be able to break free after all, in spite of all the difficulties you normally experience. So to explain all these things, we'll focus our attention in this video around this specific question. Why can it seem so hard to get what we truly want in our lives? To be successful, whatever our definition of success is. To get results from all the various personal and spiritual development techniques we may try over time. And why all those methods often seem to have so little effect. Almost like they're not much more than random hit or miss strategies. Well, before we get into that, let me make something abundantly clear. Some of the things that we'll cover in this video may initially come across as strong criticism to existing processes, techniques, and methodologies for personal and spiritual growth, while in reality it's really not. The truth is that we're all trying to achieve the same thing here, and that is to help you overcome the greatest challenges in your life and give you the most powerful tools for true self-actualization and for making real the dreams and visions you hold. So I don't want you to get me wrong here, because I'm not saying that everything else out there is crap, and that I'm the only one that you should listen to. In fact, not everything out there is crap, and there are many things that can actually be very helpful. So don't get me wrong here, I just want to give you what you need to make up your own mind. And although what we're talking about in this series includes new techniques and insights as well, some of which we still have to dig into, other stuff can still be very useful too, provided that you understand the bigger picture of cracking the egg, which is necessary because then we don't fall prey to an all or nothing, hit or miss attitude that usually ends up as nothing. But instead we'll know how to use such tools and techniques in such a way that they'll serve their specific purpose within that larger process, if they have such a purpose for you to begin with. And as such, you can guarantee the best results for you by tailoring the entire approach to the unique requirements of your individual eggshell structure. Anyway, the thing is that whatever you do doesn't necessarily have to be useful for the masses or the people displayed in testimonials. It has to be useful for you. The problem is that many different methods out there can in fact be useful, but usually they're just not tailored to the individual needs of unique people like you and me, or you don't get clear instructions to effectively perform that kind of customization. In other words, the effect of all those techniques is not universal, contrary to what you're often led to believe. At least, it's not if you're not aware of what the real problem is. In summary, the real problem with all those different things out there is this. The fact that things might not work as well for you as you hoped is not as much because all those experts out there teaching these techniques have bad intent or something, or that what they say is just a little nonsense. That's not it. It's just that a lot of them are missing the big picture of how things really fit together. And that means you are missing that big picture too. That's why you always hear about new methods all the time, and that the next thing is so much better than all the things before, and why everyone claims to have the one missing secret and all that. Usually the next thing isn't really better, and it's not one secret like many people would have you believe, but instead, usually a new technique or method is just a thing with a different focus compared to earlier methods that might in fact be helpful in some people, while it might just as well be less helpful in others like you or me, depending on you and your egg's unique characteristics and requirements. And to make these various things have any form of universal effect, you need to know how to apply some form of customization and tailor the whole thing into an approach that's fully customized to you and your unique requirements to overcome your challenges and to crack your egg. Again, as long as you just keep trying different things with different focus without having a clear idea about the big picture and how all these different pieces can fit into that picture and how the results you expect from using them can actually get blocked, then you're basically employing random hit or miss strategies, which means that the best you can do is hope for some arbitrary results. That's why it can all be so confusing and why you often experience the feeling of making 2 steps forward and 1 step back, or for some people, even 1 step forward and 2 steps back. It's all arbitrary, as long as you're missing the big picture. So the question is, what is the big picture? Well, that's what I'm getting at. This big picture can be summarized by the effects of the egg and the sly schemes it can play on you. And that's what I'm going to explain to you in this video presentation. That's also why it would be good if you've watched the other video presentations first and gone through the ebook components that came with them, because they give you some info that could really help you understand what we're talking about here. But I can give you a quick recap right now, and if you want more details, you can always go through those other materials later. In short, in our earlier conversations, we saw part of an email by a girl called Veronique from South Africa, who put it like this. It's weird. I've always felt there's this strange energy that always seems to put up a block in whatever endeavor I seem to pursue. Also, I gave you the following definition of the egg after that. This eggshell is basically an energetic cocoon in the form of a low vibrational web of suppressed thoughts, feelings, and limiting belief systems, and their associated big-time negative emotional charge. The latter is actually what's holding the whole structure together like superglue or a heavy construction cement layer. Together, these factors make up an energetic eggshell that's like a force field that completely colors and filters your worldview, locks up your naturally expansive potential, and blocks the flow of universal life energies in and out of your system. It filters your perception of who you are, where you are, and the world and life in general. Often, even to the extent that most of us get so mesmerized by our experience inside that egg that we simply can't conceive of any other reality anymore. Okay, so you'll probably think that's all fine and dandy. But why is it so hard to crack that egg using all those techniques and success methods that are already out there? Well, first of all, like I said, it's because all those methods are sort of aimed at one particular aspect of the puzzle only. And so without the big picture of the egg and the way it's structured, and of your own unique requirements as a unique person, they're really not much more than random hit or miss strategies. or they only yield minor and insignificant results because they only work on superficial levels of your egg and don't reach into the core of the matter. But that's certainly not all there is to it. Far from it, actually. But to keep things concise, we can say that it roughly has to do with two factors. The first is what I've been saying earlier, which is the fact that you're unique and that you have unique requirements because of that. And there's a simple way to deal with that, which I'll tell you about in a moment. And secondly, it has to do with how your brain works and the way in which it can filter any input and impulses you give it. This is something very subtle, so it's typically completely overlooked, or at least doesn't get the significant importance it deserves. But it's definitely a major influence in your potential results, so it's a crucial insight, and I'll explain it to you in a minute. First, let's start with the fact that you're unique. In our previous conversations and the books included with those, you learned about the egg elements that make up your eggshell and the egg filtering attributes that are created as a result. Now I'm just going to recap on that quickly, so I'm not going to go through all of that in detail again in this video presentation, and if you want more details, then I suggest you just go back to those earlier videos and their book components, because they'll tell you all you need to know about that. So to recap real quick, if you've gone through those video presentations already, you'll recall that your egg basically consists of the following elements. The first is a set of root-limiting beliefs that you somehow picked up at certain moments of great discomfort in your existence. And secondly, each of those limiting beliefs has an associated primordium, which is basically a core concern that lies at the root of your subconscious ways of thinking, feeling, and acting. These things result in a so-called managing policy that you subconsciously instill in order to cope with the constant discomfort caused by your primordiums, which in turn leads to an unnatural focus of attention, which means you basically habitually focus on things that are not conducive to your success. You might not even be consciously aware of this. It can happen very subtly and often completely subconsciously. Basically what happens is that you can't seem to get your mind out of this wrong focus. Most people will experience this as negative thoughts and feelings coming up all the time, no matter what you try to do to get rid of them or to focus on the good stuff. They just keep coming back. So this is why it can be so hard to change the chatter in your mind even when you're trying to, and why negative thoughts keep coming back no matter what effort you take in trying to change that. It has to do with your egg. Anyway, usually this unnatural focus of attention results in the fact that you get stuck in what I call an emotional prison, which isn't really a prison with bars, but rather a prison for your mind and soul in the form of often completely subconscious and habitual ways of thinking, feeling, and acting that you don't seem to have any control over. It's basically sort of a survival or protection program running inside of you that you can't seem to change even when you're aware of it. So next, this emotional prison results in a certain personality type or character that you project to your outer world, which I often refer to as your egg identity. So this isn't really the real you, but rather the you that you think you are and that you show to other people. And usually people do this for so long that they start to believe that this projected personality is who they really are, while nothing could be farther from the truth. And that's because this persona has subconscious, compensating ways of thinking, feeling, and acting that are completely designed to manage and actually mask the discomfort that you're really feeling deep inside in the form of that set of root-limiting beliefs and associated primordiums. So contrary to what you might consciously think, you're not being the real, amazing, and powerful you, taking control of your mind and spirit. But instead, you're actually being a person covering up their deepest discomforts in a certain, often completely unconscious way that you may not even be aware of yourself, thus unconsciously focusing on the very things you don't want and taking the wrong path in life if success, fulfillment, and flow are what you're really after. So if you ever want to make significant changes in your life, the egg mark, with its deep inner level of inhibiting convictions, primordiums, and discomfort, is what you have to work on dissolving. And I'm going to tell you exactly how you can do that. So again, this is just a quick summary and you can get more details if you watch the previous video presentations, but the point that I'm trying to make is this. This entire eggshell structure is unique to you. You've had your own experiences and discomforts in life and interpretations of them over time, and that way you've constructed your own set of root-limiting beliefs and core concerns to deal with. And so for you, this entire configuration is most likely different from what it's like for everyone else. Let me explain why that's so important to realize. What this means is that you need to have ways to dig up your deepest, root-limiting beliefs and core concerns. You don't need some standardized set of affirmations or something and hope they'll overwrite whatever beliefs you have inside if you just keep repeating them often enough. That's not a systematic approach. That's a random hit or miss strategy, for which at best you can hope that it gives you some results. But once you know a systematic way to identify and take out the specific limiting beliefs and core concerns that lie at the root of your egg, and you know the right techniques and protocols to target these roots, then you can take this entire structure down relatively easy. It's sort of like a house of cards. You just need to find the right cards at the bottom of the structure, and the whole thing will start to tumble down once you pull those out. And if you keep watching, I'll tell you how to do that. Oh, and by the way, I'm well aware that just about everyone seems to be talking about getting rid of limiting beliefs these days. But no one tells you how to really identify yours at this level of customized detail, let alone how to really take them out of your system effectively. And besides, whenever we hear something about limiting beliefs and convictions, it's hardly ever about their actual deepest roots and breeding ground from which they grow. And so we typically just keep working away pretty much randomly and from an unproductive orientation that's not constructive at all in the long run. The truth is that you don't overwrite beliefs or anything like that. You don't have to overwrite anything. Doing that is nothing more than swapping one box for another, or one limitation, level of conditioning, or inhibiting belief for another. Instead, you identify what caused these limiting beliefs to develop in the first place. And then you take that cause, which is a kind of inner imbalance that we call an egg mark, out of your system, root and branch, by simply dissolving it. And as a result, any limiting beliefs you may have had that were built on it will have no basis anymore for even existing in the first place. They'll just disappear as a matter of course, without the need for any specific practice to override or replace anything. So basically, what you need to do is remove the container that's keeping you small. That's what'll get you out of the box, or rather, out of the egg. And that's what'll set you free and give you the results, happiness, and fulfillment you're longing for. In short, what you need is an approach that's completely tailored to you, to your unique eggshell structure. And the details of such a customized approach are actually what we're going to talk about more and more as we keep moving forward in our training together. So stay tuned. Anyway, this being unique is just one thing, but it's also the foundation for the next problem that I mentioned earlier, which comes down to the way your brain works. You see, your brain is not just the center of your thinking. It can also act as a filter to what you actually perceive with your five senses. So to what you hear, what you see, what you taste, touch, and smell. And in doing that, it can basically filter out anything that you're trying to put into yourself, which you'll learn once you go through the ebook that you can download underneath this video presentation. And that includes the impulses you're trying to give yourself in using common self-help techniques. For example, one particular technique that I just mentioned and that's proposed all the time to help you overwrite your limiting beliefs is the constant repetition of so-called positive affirmations. Now, first of all, don't get me wrong, because redirecting your focus to more positive things is infinitely better than getting stuck in negativity. But here's the problem. In cooperation with your brain, your egg makes up a filter, as I've been explaining in the previous two video presentations and their books. So the problem with the affirmations approach is that your eggshell layers, together with the typical workings of your brain, can actually filter out all those positive impulses that you try to give yourself, and that way they never really get to the core of you or your subconscious mind, which means that you're basically just wasting your time. And let me tell you why that is. Like I've been explaining, one significant determining factor in this filtering process of your brain is your unique eggshell, with its own configuration of egg elements and egg filtering attributes. So to bypass that sort of filtering, you need particular techniques and protocols that go beyond what you normally learn in the mainstream. All of this is explained in the previous video presentations of books, by the way, but that's just one reason. In addition to that, it also has to do with the natural sort of filtering that your brain does all by itself. See, you've probably heard this before, but your brain consists of two distinct halves, the left brain and the right brain. The left brain is the logical part, associated with analytical, verbal, and writing skills and things like deduction, order, linearity, details, facts, and so on. The right brain, on the other hand, is the artistic part, which is more connected to the emotional, feeling part of you, and receives data as a whole and appreciates rhythm, form, creativity, multiprocessing, holism, etc. Now here's the thing. What might be acceptable to one side of your brain, which in itself depends in part on the unique characteristics of your egg, might not be acceptable to the other side of your brain, simply because each of these halves has its own way of processing information. So if only one half of your brain accepts a particular statement like an affirmation, and to the other half it's not acceptable for one reason or the other, which, like I said, usually has to do with your egg, then the statement you're trying to hammer in simply gets filtered. And so it never reaches any deeper, let alone core area of your mind. Instead, for a statement to be accepted subconsciously to any degree, it needs to be acceptable to both sides of your brain first, or to bypass both sides. Otherwise, such statements or impulses just get filtered out. And whether a brain half accepts such an impulse or not has to do with the unique characteristics of your egg. Because your brain filters information and constructs an image of reality that fits the ingrained belief systems of your egg. And by the way, this is all explained in far more detail in the ebook that you can download underneath this video presentation, which you should definitely go read right after you finish watching this. And with regard to affirmation-like statements, there's another way to use those so they're not completely useless, but it's certainly not in the way in which it's commonly proposed. But that's something we'll discuss later. But anyway, make no mistake, knowing about how this filtering works is crucial because it's the reason why so few approaches actually have a significant effect. Now let's do a little exercise as a metaphor to appreciate this idea of filtering. Imagine this for a moment. Picture yourself right now as one of those Russian dolls. The idea of these dolls is that a smaller version of the doll fits into a larger version. As such, there are multiple layers to the doll. If you open the large one, you'll find a smaller one inside. And if you open that one, you'll find an even smaller one inside that one, and so on, until you get to the smallest version. Likewise, there are multiple layers to you and your egg too. Your large doll layer is the outer layer of your current eggshell structure that you project to the world. As we discussed in the previous video presentation, this is your egg identity, the personality built on your entire eggshell structure that you project to the world, which also filters your perception according to the beliefs and subconscious patterns it's built upon. But underneath that outer layer, there are other layers of yourself as well. All these layers have to do with different sets of root limiting beliefs and prime worriments, which we've been discussing in the second video presentation also. Now, picture yourself going through all these various layers, into your deepest layers. Just sit back and visualize that for a moment. Go through all the various layers you've built around yourself, deeper and deeper, as if you're cracking various layers of yourself, or your egg if you will. Keep cracking and keep going deeper and deeper until you eventually reach the smallest real version of you, which is almost like a completely clean, unprogrammed, naive, small version of you. Many people find it helpful to visualize that version of yourself as you when you were 5 or 6 years old. This is your core identity, the real you. So around this core, you've got all these thick eggshell layers that you've consciously or subconsciously built around yourself throughout the years. Now let me ask you this. Can you imagine what sort of filtering these layers do before an impulse like an affirmation ultimately reaches your core, if it ever does so in the first place? I mean, it's because of all this filtering, and not just the filtering of your eggshell layers, but also the filtering that's a consequence of the typical functioning of your two brain halves. It's because of that combined filtering that such an impulse might never reach your core to begin with, no matter how often you repeat it or how good you try to make yourself feel about it. So even though many experts have probably been telling you that your paradigms and belief systems are created by repetition, and that for that reason they supposedly change through repetition as well, the truth is that because of this filtering, there's much more to consider than repetition alone, and trying to add positive emotional power to it and that sort of thing. And for the same reason, a lot of other methods and self-improvement techniques besides affirmations don't work for you the way you expect them to either. For example, creative visualization with emotional involvement can be a useful technique for certain purposes, but typically doesn't bypass this type of filtering, and usually ends up being little more than a relaxation exercise. Which is fine, just probably not what you're used it for. And as I'll explain in the PDF training guide that I'll give you in a moment, it's the same for a ton of other techniques, which merely have an effect on the superficial levels of your eggshell, unless you put them together the right way, using the right protocols, combined with some other strategies to customize things to the unique characteristics of your egg. But that's something we'll dig deeper into as we progress through your training. Anyway, make no mistake, because this is a crucial thing to understand if you really want to change your root-limiting beliefs and core concerns, or, better yet, to crack your egg. I really want you to get this and understand how you can bypass this sort of filtering and sabotage. So that's why I put together another ebook for you that explains this filtering process with a more concrete scenario as an example. You can download it through the link underneath this video. And if you've been wondering why affirmations or other methods you've tried never really work for you, this is where you'll find your explanation. Plus, I'll tell you about a way to overcome this. So as a quick summary of what we've been talking about, all these things taken together, and I mean your unique eggshell structure, involving your unique personal egg elements and egg filtering attributes, and the inherent functioning of the left and right halves of your brain, these things make up the main reasons why it can be so hard to crack your egg with existing techniques, particularly if you don't have the big picture in mind of how this filtering works, and of how various techniques should be applied and customized to you, in order to make them carry out the specific aims in the larger process of cracking the egg. These egg elements and brain filtering mechanisms basically work together to sabotage all your efforts so that the self-protective, subconscious patterns that lie at the root of your eggshell structure all stay intact. And you're pressured and kept small all the time, no matter what you try. And as I explained in the previous video presentation, the whole story originates in a self-protective state of mind, in the sense that the whole structure of your egg is aimed at trying to avoid the sort of discomfort that created it in the first place. The problem is that based on the nature of how you create reality that we've been over in detail in the previous video presentation and its ebook, the resulting effect of this is actually the opposite of what it tries to accomplish. That is, rather than avoiding the discomfort it's built on, you're actually attracting it because life reflects your state of mind. So without understanding how this filter works, anything you'll try to do will be no more than a random hit or miss strategy. But fortunately, there is a way of overcoming this predicament, which we'll talk about some more later on. So right now, here's what I'd like you to do. First of all, as always, there's an ebook that comes with this video presentation. And underneath this video, you'll see a link through which you can download it. Just right-click on that link, save the PDF to your computer, open it up, and read it right after you're done watching this. Make sure you do, because it's really important that you've got a good grasp on the things that we've been talking about so far. Secondly, at the risk of stating the blatantly obvious, this presentation is the third one in a series, so there are 2 sessions that came before this one, along with their own accompanying PDF training guides. So if you want to dig into those again, click on the links to the right to navigate to those other video presentations, so you can refresh your memory or increase your understanding of what we've been discussing even more. And finally, keep an eye on your email. As I mentioned before, this series of videos and ebook training guides was designed to get you started on your own crack your egg process, either by enabling you to apply the tools and techniques that you are already familiar with in new ways and with readjusted focus and increased power, or by applying the techniques that I've shared with you so far on this series, and that I will continue to do so in the near future, or both. But as I've hinted on before, I've also designed a clear and straightforward methodology to cracking your egg, which by now you know is so absolutely crucial to our well-being, success, and fulfillment in life. And this all-powerful and compelling methodology takes into account all the apparent complexities and potential stumbling blocks that we talked about over the course of our sessions together, and offers a step-by-step approach to overcoming them, while cracking your egg at the deepest possible level and with the greatest possible focus, force, and efficiency. So in that regard, while the insights you've gained from what I've been sharing with you so far may be sufficient on their own to help you turn your entire life around as much as you'd like to, they're also merely the tip of the iceberg and just the beginning of an even more powerful, extended version of the crack your egg process. I've polished, honed, and fine-tuned this methodology for years and turned it into an actual, full-fledged, step-by-step method, which I've now put together for you in a format that's specifically designed to make you a true master of this process, and by extension of your own destiny. And that method will seriously help you take your creative power and your ability to create a life experience that's rewarding and fulfilling to you to an entirely new level altogether. So if indeed you're really serious about this process and you want to take your relationships, your career, your business, your energy, your health, your vibrancy, your productivity, your creativity, and basically your entire life to that level and become a true master of your own destiny, then keep an eye out for the next installment where I'll tell you all the details of what's included and how you can enroll into the program and things like that. Just so you know that help is here for you if you want it. Of course, I'll be following up with you with more techniques, tools, and training as well, and you're completely free to decide for yourself if you want to get in on the program and learn the most powerful steps and techniques to cracking your egg. The decision is all yours, but I figured I'd let you know about the opportunity. Right now, do the things you see on the screen, and don't forget to leave a comment below because it's always great to hear from you. Just tell me and others what you learned from this presentation and from the PDF training guide that you can download below. Or just say hi. Anyway, thanks for watching. I think it's really great that you're part of this, and I'll see you next time.